Hello and welcome back to our second episode of It's a Man's World. This is my first guest, Mrs. Kate Blackford, and I am privileged to have her on board. She has honestly changed my life in many ways. I have become a different person. I probably wouldn't have ever even started the podcast or done anything like this without you. So I'm so grateful and so excited to have you on board.
Oh, I'm really, really pleased to be here and super excited to be your first ever guest. So thank you.
More special. And I feel like what I do with my community and how powerful you are and what you do. And obviously we kind of interlinked and we did obviously start with the therapy side of things. I'll let you introduce yourself, but we did start mingling in the business side of things and it has obviously benefited and interlinked. So we'll run through that as well today. But if you want to give people an introduction into who you are, what you do, where you're from, because for me, when I read what you sent me over and what you do, I couldn't even put it into one. It was that amazing. So I'll let you take the lead and give a little bit of an intro into who you are, what you do for anyone that doesn't know.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's quite diverse. So nowadays, I run Origami and we do therapy coaching and business consulting services. We also run training and webinars for companies as well. So it is quite a diverse range. The kind of therapy coaching side is where my heart lives. But the business side is really important as well, because a lot of my clients, and I'm sure I'll talk to you more about the sorts of things I work with clients as we go, but a lot of my clients, you know, our lives aren't distinct between work and home life. They cross over, and how we feel in one area of our life does often impact how we feel and perform in another. So for me, the business side is a really, really important counterbalance to the therapy and coaching, because if we can get businesses understanding people and how people work and working with people, then not only are people happier at work and happier in their lives, they're also performing better, which makes, you know, better business performance. So it kind of just seemed intuitive that the two went together. And the kind of the first 20 years of my career, I spent actually working in business, in leadership positions and in consulting. So I also have a wealth of experience that I've brought from there across as well. And in amongst it, I did a PhD. So looking at organizational psychology, so looking specifically at quality of working life, so well-being, what keeps us happy at work, what keeps us engaged along the way as well. So they kind of really complement each other and allow me not only to work with people at the individual level, but also with organizations, with leaders, either within or outside organizations, and to just kind of give a really holistic perspective, both for work and life balance.
Amazing. And there's definitely, I've seen the list, there's even more things there that we probably would keep going with, which is amazing. But what is your favorite part? Like, what's the favorite part of it? The leadership? Is it more one-on-one, or what do you prefer? Like, what's your favorite, obviously, since it's such a variety?
It's the one-to-one stuff. I work almost exclusively with women, and my partner Paul also works with me in the business. He works with a range. He works with men, women, and children. He's a lot more diverse, but I really enjoy working with women. And do you know what? The thing that I love about it is each and every one of these women is an inspiration to me, is courageous and incredible in their own right. And they come to me with problems, with issues of a real variety, but just incredible, courageous, inspirational women, each and every single one of them. And I love working with them through their journey, however far they choose to take it, and seeing them really take flight at the end of it.
I love that. Nothing better than seeing the transformation, obviously physically, but mentally overall as a person. It's the best thing ever for sure. When I said to you, I remember sending you over, you were the first person that I sent over a screenshot of my podcast and what I was calling it. And I was like, oh my God, is this kind of like touching on like a feminist type of thing? And what was your first opinion when I said it was going to be called It's a Man's World? And I kind of gave you an explanation as to what I wanted to kind of get the message across in.
Well, first off, I have to answer this without swearing. I thought it was absolutely Brilliant title.
Yeah.
Yes, you know me. I am I would classify myself probably as a classical feminist. So I'm not men or women are better than the other, but I do believe in equity and equality. And I do, I do work a lot with empowering women, because there are still a lot of social and cultural elements that can lead women to feeling disempowered or making themselves small, or not really truly stepping into owning their space and owning their power. And so yeah, I'm 100% on board. And it's not about, necessarily pointing fingers about discrimination or anything else, but there are still factors at play historically, culturally, socially, that impact roles, and as women, our confidence, our capabilities, our self-belief, especially in leadership. In leadership, women are still massively underrepresented in leadership positions in organizations. And we talk about, we want diversity, but, I've seen women in senior positions who, in order to try to kind of fit into the culture, are kind of behaving in ways that actually isn't them. And then we're undermining that thought diversity, because we're not feeling like we can step into the role as who we are and be empowered as our authentic selves in leadership. So, there's a lot of different things at play there, but particularly in the business context and the leadership context, there's a lot there around historical and cultural and social influences that are not supporting, enabling and empowering women to really step into and thrive in those roles.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's where my inspiration came from with the name as well. And obviously working together over the last while, it really got my brain thinking into how much kind of untapped potential I was leaving on the table, or not putting my hand up because I didn't want the men in the room that were maybe bodybuilders or something to think that I wasn't smart enough, that I couldn't do it. I remember going to events in Dubai in the UK, and I used to always say, where is all the women? Like, where is everyone? Like, it was always males, and I was like, I used to always sit there and think like, I would love this to be more females, and do people not come because of like I'm not really sure. Like obviously there's a lot of different factors as to what event it is and what it's all about. But I do feel like at most events that you go to, it is more male. Like there is a lot more males. You're sitting at a table full of men, and there might be one or two women spotted all over the place. So that's why anyone that does stuff like this, and like as you said, like brings out that authentic self, like someone that is courageous and you're really helping them discover a different level to themselves, that's what I love, because I'm sure there's so many females that are probably going to be listening to this right now that may feel a little bit unheard or unseen.
Yeah, exactly that. I mean, I spent before I retrained and became a therapist, I spent years working, as I say, as a senior leader and consultant, and it was pretty much exclusively in what we call heavy industry. So it was industries that are historically and even nowadays are still massively male heavy in all levels of the organization. And I had situations when I was a young consultant going into businesses and being in a room full of the executive board of men, and being told, well, what does a little girl know about our business? And it's like, well, actually I know an awful lot, because I'm a qualified psychologist. I've got a huge wealth of experience, and I can see things from lots of different angles here that perhaps aren't being tapped into. So, that was a good few years ago, 15 years ago. I remember that particular incident. It was actually happened, but it wasn't the only one. And so, there were these perceptions there that even as a consultant going in from a position of kind of knowledge and authority, I was questioned, and I had to work so much harder to be heard and to be taken seriously and to be given credit. That, for me, it made me even more stubborn and determined. But
Yeah.
actually, it's still not a nice position to be in, to feel like you have to be prepared to kind of fight to be heard. And, my approach is not to shout over other people. You can hear from my voice, I'm not really, I mean, I can belt out a song on the karaoke, but, shouting over people in a meeting is just not my way of doing things. And I didn't want to have to become something that wasn't authentically me,
Yeah.
be able to hold my position. So it became quite a journey for me, and that's part of how I got to doing what I do now, of how do I grow myself, how do I grow my career, how do I honor the things that I want to do while still honoring myself and my values and my beliefs and my integrity along the way.
Yeah, for sure. And coming back to that there, like right at the end, your beliefs, your values, that was something we worked on a lot. That if, say, for example, someone else's values don't correlate to what you want, then that's okay as well. And that's something that I wasn't prepared to accept, because I was like, is that not wrong? But it's not, it's like what I value. But for anyone that, say, is unsure about whether they are being their true authentic self, what is your true authentic self, and how do you know what you value?
Oh, that's a difficult question.
I know.
Yeah, so and this is actually one of the things that I work with a lot of my clients on, whether it's therapy or coaching. And it might not be something that they bring to me initially. It's something that often comes up through the process. And so, for example, if we have grown up and we lack maybe self-confidence or self-worth, even if it's just in particular areas of our lives, it might not be in all areas of our lives, because we can have areas where we feel really confident and really in control, and other areas where we're not quite sure. We can be inclined to feel imposter syndrome. Am I good enough? Can I do this? Constantly questioning. We can have awful self-doubt that can bring anxiety and low mood. It can also mean that we don't hold healthy boundaries. And actually holding healthy boundaries is one of the things that allows us to live with integrity and to live to our values. And so the thing is that where we've had this kind of all these experiences and we've got this lack of self-worth, for example, can be really hard to know what our values really are. And so working through therapeutically some of the baggage that we all pick up. Yeah, we all pick up along the way, and we all carry, working through that and working through some of the things that are causing us, for example, to people please, or to not be able to hold our boundaries, or to feel like an imposter, to doubt ourselves, can actually then kind of almost clear the fog that allows us then to reconnect with our values and our beliefs. And then from there, we can start to live much more in alignment and more authentically. And as you said, we can have different values and beliefs to people, as long as we're always showing respect, not only to others, but to ourselves. And that's really important part of what we are taught as therapists to do, and that part of some of the skills that I try and help my ladies to kind of understand and to work on is appreciating we all have different perspectives, we all come from different places, we have different experiences, and that shapes our way of being in the world and our way of perceiving the world and our beliefs and our values. And so when we can start to understand that and start to get really interested in where someone else is coming from, that leads to much deeper understanding and much deeper connection. And again, helps us to really be clear about our values and beliefs, and where they are and where perhaps somebody else's are, and where they match and mismatch, and how we navigate that. So it's a really fundamental bit of kind of being healthy mentally and being able to, like I say, step into your power and own your space and be empowered.
Amazing. Yeah. And when we started working together, I was basically peeling back a layer and layer every time. And when I asked you that question, I'm just thinking there, I didn't even know what my values were, because I was so scattered, and I didn't know what a healthy boundary was. And I was like, well, if that was okay for someone to do here, like it's not okay on my side. And that's another thing as well, that they're your boundaries. And you said like that's your bubble. If someone like comes into that bubble and it doesn't feel good for you, you need to obviously trust for how you're feeling, and does it align with you, because it does affect you down the line as well. And I think, as you said, the more you work on yourself, the more you peel back the layers, the more you kind of look at the baggage that you have been holding and like really kind of go deep. And that's a scary thing for people to do, because most people point the finger and they blame everyone else around them. But how you react and the way you respect yourself and other people, like you said, in the world is everything. Because if you can show up as a better person for your team, for your partner, for your family, and in general, every day, how you kind of interact with people and how what your presence is like, it just makes the world obviously a better place, because there's obviously so much nowadays that goes on and how we all treat each other that it's absolutely crazy. But I think if you can do it for yourself and it's
Yeah.
the people around you get that vibe, get that aura, like that example there, jumping to a conclusion when you're like, you don't really know what that person has gone through that day. You don't know why they're saying that. They've gone through something totally different to what you have, and this is why they're reacting like that. And for me, that was something that was so good that I was able to kind of control now that I know, well, okay, you reacted like that, probably because of this, or I'm not jumping and saying, well, that's not how I feel, blah, blah. You know, you're able to approach every situation in your life totally different.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's there's the kind of the finesse, the nuance is having the ability to be understanding, but also to hold your boundaries, because like you say, there are certain things where it's not okay. And often, as a lot of the women that I work with, they have got certainly areas of our lives where they feel unseen or unheard. And it can happen, we all get it. We get upset and somebody says, oh, you're a bit emotional today, or is it that time of the month? Oh,
Don't
how
say
annoying is
that.
that? um or women get described as hysterical, emotionally volatile, and all of these things. Actually, what can happen is we start to suppress expressing how we feel. We doubt how we feel, we question how we feel, and that muddies the waters. And when we're able to do the work that needs doing and get that clarity and be clear about our values and our integrity and our boundaries, then we're able to say, well, actually, you may or may not agree with how I feel. It doesn't matter. How I feel is important, and I'm going to honor it. And even if you don't agree with it, you need to hear it and honor it. And if that means stepping out of my space because you're over my boundary right now,
Yes.
that's what you need to do, because that's how I feel. And it enables you to do that. So it enables you to kind of have much more clarity around where's the line, and when is it not okay? Because then you can much more confidently say, that's not okay, because it's not about whether you agree with how I feel. It's about, this is how I feel. This is not okay. That's the end of it.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
it's okay. Yeah, it's okay for someone to have a different opinion, but they can't tell you that your feelings are wrong, and they can't tell you that your experience is wrong. And when we're in that place of self-doubt or low self-worth or low self-confidence, or questioning, we can get challenged on our own experience and feelings, and then we start to question it ourselves. And it's like, oh no, nobody else can tell you how you feel.
Exactly, and what goes on in your head, your gut, and your emotions don't need to be pushed underneath the rug and forgotten about because you feel silly for expressing yourself. You should be able to say that. And what feels minor for you might be major for me. And you might think that's crazy, but you don't really know what someone has gone through in their past to feel like this is such a major thing for me and it's gone way too far. But they might think that's so minor. Why would you even react like that?
Yeah, absolutely. And it is, and it's about kind of, it relates to how our brains process situations. And sometimes when I'm working with a client, we can go back to a childhood event that they'd completely forgotten. And actually, when they look at it as an adult, as they are now, with their knowledge, their experience, their resources and maturity, they look back and go, but that was such a small thing. How's that had all these ripples? But as a child, we process the world quite differently. So things that when we look back and think, that seems really minor, how has that had such an impact? Or it's a drip, drip, drip of a lot of seemingly small things that over time have eroded our sense of self and self-esteem. That actually, it isn't always this big event that can create the challenges and the problems and the struggles that we experience. It can be what seem like small things or a number of small things that actually at the time really did make an impact on us, because we didn't have all the skills and resources and experience and knowledge and tools that we have now. So yeah, it's always about it. It doesn't matter how big or small it seems. It's what's the impact it's having on you. And I have clients who say to me, oh, you know, because I work with clients who have been through incredibly traumatic events, I do some pro bono work with veterans and soldiers. And I have a spot on my books always for one veteran or soldier who has PTSD and wants access to support that they don't feel they can get, or they want to try different kind of support. And so people say, well, you must hear all kinds of things. You know, my problems are really minor by comparison. That's not how it works. It's about how is it impacting you, and what's the life that you want to lead, and are you being blocked from doing that? Because if you are, then whatever it is isn't working for you, and that it's not relevant how big or small it seems in the context of anything else. It's limiting you, it's stopping you, therefore it is important.
Amazing. And it's all about you. It's not about anyone else. As
Yeah.
you said, it's your feelings, your body, your life. You're in control of everything, which is the most amazing thing. And I think that's why people underestimate or don't even think about therapy or having to go and do all that type of stuff and talk. And I wouldn't have the time for that. But then you look at the type of person and how they're showing up in the world every day, or where they could be stagnant in their business and they don't realize that that's probably actually affecting them because of the way they are being with their team members, anything, that it kind of all does interlink all the time.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And even, you know, going back to values, when we're in conflict, when we're unclear about our values and we're not holding boundaries healthily, we are living in a state of constant conflict, because even if we're not consciously aware that we're not living to our values, in our mind, we've got this constant sort of conflict, this discomfort, this dis-ease going on about something's not right, something's not feeling right. And on the other side, when we're not holding healthy boundaries, we can end up overcommitting, and then we neglect ourselves. We're not doing our gym time, we're not joining our calls for our nutrition and health and fitness training. We're not having time to produce good, healthy food, or even just to sit down and read a book for 10 minutes, if that's how we do self-care, you know, because we're running around after other people. And maybe we're even feeling resentful because we say yes to things and then we think, oh, and we have to shuffle a whole load of things, and we're tired and we really don't have the time or the energy, but we've said yes, so we ought to do it. So then we feel resentful. So it can have all these knock-on effects, and it can actually then be massively at our own detriment because we're not looking after ourselves. We're not putting our own oxygen mask on first. And the problem is that culturally, for a lot of women, saying no and having healthy boundaries at first can feel selfish. And they're a bit worried about letting people down. And
Mhm.
yeah, so, you know, it's about helping women to understand again where the nuance there is, and where's the line where, you know, you do need to say no and hold those boundaries, because if we don't look after ourselves, we can't fully show up for anybody else.
And that's the very first step before you do anything, isn't it? It's you
Yeah.
and everyone else. But anyone that is unsure about how to set a boundary or how to set healthy boundaries, where do you even start with that if you're kind of unsure? Or does it come back to the same thing of you need to know how
Yeah,
to. Mhm.
I think it's, you know, often it's doing the work, because if you're not able to hold healthy boundaries, there's something going on there that's stopping you. But when you start out, the first thing is start small. So, you know, it's not about kind of suddenly saying no to everything. That can feel really difficult. You know, you're in the moment and somebody catches you and you're like, and you're trying to say, no, I can't do that. That can feel really, really hard at first. So I always say the first thing to practice is actually to say, let me check and I'll get back to you. And that gives you time. So you're not in the moment, you're not under pressure to give a response. That gives you time to go away, have a think. Is this something I want to do? Is this something I feel I need to do? Is this something I can do without sacrificing my health and well-being? And then you can go back and give an answer and say, oh, I've checked my diary. Yep, I can do that. Or I've checked my diary and I'm sorry, I just can't make that work.
Yeah, and it's
And it
okay.
just, gives you time to do that kind of inner reflection, check in with yourself, check in with your diary and your commitments,
Yeah.
rather than responding on the spot, feeling flustered, saying yes, and then thinking, oh no, why did I do that?
And people constantly do that as well. Or obviously moms that have a busy life with their family and stuff, like where would you set boundaries in terms of your relationship with, if you're a stay-at-home mom and you've got the kids 24/7? And I've got a lot of clients that say, like, I need to ask my partner, would I be able to get to the gym for those 3 days a week? And I would really love that. And I'm like, I always try and think and put myself, not myself in the position, but think about where they're coming from. Of course, they're really busy, they've got a family life as well, but at the end of the day, if that's going to benefit everyone all around, more energy for the kids, more energy for the partner, conversation, how do you approach a situation like that where you know you're kind of crossing the boundary if he's tired after coming home, but like you matter too. Like I would love to know how to say to my ladies without kind of pushing too much, to say like that's important that you have that time for you too.
Yeah. And I think the thing is that, you know, women are juggling so many things now. You know, they're juggling work and home and being a mum and being a wife and looking after their body and trying to have friends, and you know, there are so many things. And I think as well, particularly for stay-at-home mums, it's still massively underrated as a profession, you know, because it doesn't earn money. Somehow it's not seen as, you know, and it's your children, so you know, you should just be really glad. That doesn't mean you don't get exhausted. It doesn't mean you don't need a break. You know, jobs, you go to work, you come home, maybe you check your emails. That's a whole other boundary issue, but not for today. um, but you know, and you know, you switch off from work, and maybe you work Monday to Friday, so you get your weekends off. But as a mum who's at home with the kids, you're at home with the kids all day and then all evening, and then from first thing in the morning and all weekend. And actually, mums need a break too. And or you know, full-time stay-at-home dads. So you know, it's not, you know, they're not sat on their bottoms with their feet up having a lovely cup of tea and a nice gentle life. You know, there does need to be time for us. And actually it's quite interesting that I will get women sometimes whose kids are kind of going off to the point of life where they're getting more independent, and suddenly these ladies have more time and capacity on their hand, and they've lost themselves because that was all they did for all those years. And they're like, well, I don't know who I am anymore. I don't know, I feel like I've lost myself. And I always say, you've not lost yourself. You've at a point where you get to create the person you want to now become. But you know, just because it's not a paid salary job doesn't mean you don't need a break and you don't need self-care. And yeah, I mean, I always remember somebody saying to me once, oh well, I might be able to come out, but I'll have to ask my husband if he can babysit. I was like, excuse me, your husband doesn't babysit. He is a parent. You're asking him if he can co-parent by staying in with the kids one evening while you go out. You know, he goes out twice a week. That's not babysitting. A babysitting is someone you get in and you pay. That's called co-parenting. And I think, you know, there are some things around having maybe a conversation about that. Look, you know, I really do need a bit of time just to go and blow off some steam, get to the gym, have a bit of a time to breathe and to take a break. Can we make an arrangement about how that could work so that you're having some time on your own with the kids and I'm having some time to myself, and then we can also do the other way around where you get some time to yourself outside of work when I'm doing it. So, you know, thinking about how do you make those balances work so that, you know, you're getting a bit of time to do your gym stuff, your self-care, and your partner, your husband, is also getting a bit of time outside of work. Because otherwise he might feel like he's either at work or he's at home doing dad mode as well. So it's about actually really having a proactive conversation. And often these things come up when you're at breaking point, and it might end up being a heated conversation or an argument. And the best thing to do is to actually sit down proactively when you're both in a calm space and talk about it and make a plan, make a schedule, and be organized about it and agree it and work out the logistics and what you might do and fun activities that you or your partner can do with the kids when you're doing your downtime on your own with them. And, you know, that way it becomes an agreement, not a, I really need to get out of here because I've had no time to myself for the last 6 months and I can't do this anymore kind of conversation, which can often go down the wrong path.
Yeah, and communication and those difficult conversations are probably everything, because they're always the ones that are always playing in your subconscious back of your mind, where you're like, will I, won't I, should I say it, will I go for it? Oh, I'm not going to do that now because it will cause a big argument, or maybe we're going away and I'll wait until we're back. And it's always building and building and building. So if you kind of have that conversation, take the step to just say it in a really, obviously a good way, that you're not going at someone and pointing the finger or anything, just expressing how you feel. The majority of the time, your partner will understand and say, absolutely, no problem. And you'll say, why did I even stress over saying something like that? It's all
Yeah.
kind of what you build up in your mind, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think sometimes as women, you know, being a stay-at-home mum isn't, like I say, isn't valued by a lot of society. And I think often stay-at-home mums don't value their role themselves and how important and how tiring and how full on it is. And so, you know, it's about also changing your framing of that, you know, you do deserve some time for yourself. And it comes back to, when we show up for ourselves, we can show up for other people. And it's a point of integrity. If we're really wanting to show up and be present for other people, we need to show up and be present for ourselves as well. And so, yeah, absolutely. And even if you go into that conversation, maybe with just a suggestion mapped out, or even write some bullet points of what you want to say, because if you're a little bit worried sometimes, if you're anything like me, and I'm a little bit anxious, my words get a bit muddly.
Yeah.
So, you know, if I've got a difficult conversation to have, even though I've done this stuff for years, I will still write bullet points
Yeah.
of the key things I want to cover, and possibly a starter for 10 for the conversation for how you might work a schedule. So perhaps we could do this, this, and this. What do you think? And start from there, so that you've got some clarity around what you want to communicate, because that can be super, super helpful. So it does sound a bit like a meeting agenda, but it really, really helps.
It's writing stuff down for me. I'm the exact same. I like to have it down, so when I'm going into the conversation, I know what I'm after saying, because sometimes when I get there, I'm like, I didn't even talk, what was I even talking about? Because you just get so worked up that you forget what you were even there to speak about.
Yes. Or you forget something, and then afterwards you go, oh,
For God's sake.
and you think, oh, I can't go back now and go, oh, and another thing.
Yeah.
You know, you feel like it's done then and you can't go back. So yeah, just to also to make sure that you've got some clarity, you can communicate clearly, and that you cover everything that you want to cover.
Communication has definitely changed the game with my relationship as well. So it's a huge thing. So take the advice. And when we look at emotional baggage, and obviously we talk about like the bags that people carry on their back and how it weighs them down, and that's what, like yourself and Kyron and stuff like that, you do kind of refer back to that and think of it as like a shell on your back, and when you take it off you feel 10 kg lighter, like literally. How do you,
Absolutely.
like when you look at someone's past, some people don't have a past and some people don't have things that have happened to them, or whatever way their life has kind of started to where they are now. How does your past shape who you are today? Because a lot of obviously the older generation now, and people that aren't educated in like self-healing and that style of like your life and looking at things, like that's not really a thing, like you don't look at stuff like that. That's brushed under the mat. That's the past. Forget about it. How does that affect you today if you do not deal with issues that have happened in the past that are nearly holding you back or down?
There are a whole range of different ways it can affect you, and obviously everybody's different. And you know, sometimes being stoic and forging through can be, you know, a super helpful tool, but sooner or later, for most people, the baggage is going to need addressing. And it's almost like when we have difficult experiences, and like I say, it's not always necessarily big things that are obvious. It can just be a drip, 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 drip throughout life of, you know, perhaps you were awkward at school and you didn't have a great friendship group and you felt a bit like an outcast, and you know, you kind of carry that because our early experiences particularly really do shape our unconscious programs of how we experience the world. And so we pick up these programs, these ideas, these beliefs about I'm not good enough, or if I don't help everybody else, that means I'm a bad person, or I'm not pretty enough, or I'm not smart enough, or whatever it is. And we can pick these up in a range of ways. And it's like, if we don't deal with them, what happens is the way that our brain is attuned is to look for evidence that supports our existing beliefs. So if we have a belief that we are not good enough, our brain will pay more attention to what we believe is evidence of that than it will to the compliments, the successes, that kind of thing. So it can reinforce itself. And it's also that it can create problems. So maybe if we've had a difficult relationship with a parent, not a criticism of any parents. We all do the best we can with what we've got, just to be clear there. But maybe we've had a difficult relationship with a parent for whatever reason. And we grow up and maybe then we start to struggle with our relationships, our intimate relationships. So because of how the unconscious mind processes things, sometimes the problem that we experience in the present isn't immediately kind of connectable to what it is that kind of created the problem in the first place, because our unconscious mind doesn't work in a very logical way, unfortunately. So we can look at things logically till we're blue in the face, but often the actual root of the problem might not be quite as logical as you think it might be, or as you're looking for initially. So it can create problems in life. Perhaps if we've had an experience or experiences in childhood where we've felt particularly on edge or anxious, then that can then become a problem of ongoing anxiety or panic attacks later in life. Or it can become low mood, or we can start to socially isolate ourselves because we feel too anxious to go out and be around too many people. And so, you know, everything that happens, every experience we have, it gets coded into the unconscious mind, and it gets coded into ways that hopefully will help us to stay safe and healthy and well. But sometimes the unconscious mind doesn't get it quite right. And what it does is it creates a code that causes us problems. So, for example, with anxiety, which can be hugely debilitating, what the unconscious mind is trying to do with that is it's trying to keep us safe. So we have an experience that frightens us, and then we start to experience anxiety, for example. What's happened is the unconscious mind has gone, oh, that experience was really, really frightening. And so anything that seems like it might be remotely like that reference experience creates a feeling of anxiety. This could be bad. This could be bad. And the idea of anxiety is to get us to get away from, to avoid things that feel threatening. The problem is that they may or may not actually be threatening. It just depends whether it's got coded helpfully or not in the unconscious. So, you know, whatever the problem that we're having is, the intention of that coding that's creating that problem, that unconscious processing, was in some way to keep us safe and healthy and well. It just isn't quite panning out like that in real life. So it's, you know, it's these ripple effects that we get from these past experiences that can really go for years and years and years if they're not addressed. And they get heavy. They get heavier over time.
Emotional, tired, you just don't want to be feeling like that. You also, some people don't want to react like that, and it just happens because it's just instinct and it's barriers, and you put it up because you just don't want to get hurt again, or you'll run the other way from all of that. But can you, like, when you're saying coding there, can you uncode something? Can you remove that? Or how do you, obviously when you get to a situation like that, because I know it myself, I get to something, I'm like, no, don't you even attempt that. Like, remember you said to me, what did you say? Yes, no, maybe land kills.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, maybe land's the worst. Um, when you're not sure what might happen or how, and that's why, you know, COVID was so difficult for a lot of people, because everyone was stuck in maybe land for so long. So if you were, you know, less resilient to to uncertainty. And as human beings, we're not particularly great with uncertainty as a general rule. Then that hit really, really hard. And for people who are really kind of extrovert, it was even harder because they couldn't have the social interaction either. But yes, you can. And it's not about kind of removing the code. It's about adapting, recoding it. So we don't ever want to leave a gap, because if we leave a gap, we don't know what's going to hop into it. So we work to reframe, recode, whatever terminology you want to use, whatever it is that's creating the problems. And in the work that I do therapeutically and in coaching, I will always look at getting kind of some reframing and some recoding on the root of the problem or problems, but also teaching my clients tools and techniques and strategies and skills for life that will help them to stay resilient, to keep resilient, to kind of reduce their baseline stress or anxiety or pressure, so that when life throws the stuff at you that's hard, you've got more capacity to begin with. So even stuff like, sometimes I'll even work through how to structure your day and organize your time and reduce what we call cognitive load, which is the amount of pressure on your poor mind in a day, whether that's remembering all the things on your to-do list or the emotional load. You know, it's actually, if there are so many simple strategies that I work with clients on for that kind of thing, because that can make a huge difference. That can be the difference that makes the difference, that gives people headspace to maybe start working on the deeper stuff, for example.
Yeah, amazing. It's the light switch, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like getting to that moment where you feel your chest is getting tight, you feel like that feeling of, "Oh, that's happening again. What is this? Will I react?" Like anyone that is obviously new here and they're listening, would you say take a minute, take a breath, think before you act? Because what I used to do was act before I used to think. So I act and then be like, oh my God, I just like, what did I just do there? What did I say? And then I'm like, I shouldn't have even gone there. Now I think, and I'm like, no, let's just look at this from a different way. So would you say stop, think, assess, and then make your decision, like what you said before?
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, it's about that taking a breath and honoring ourselves with giving ourselves that moment, because often we feel like we have to respond straight away, when no, it's quite all right to take a breath and take a minute and check in and, okay, how do I want to take this forward? How do I want to respond? That's okay. That's about respecting yourself
Yeah.
and holding your integrity. And then the other piece is about getting my clients to a point where they're not getting triggered in those situations. Because those are those situations where you're triggered, where there's something going on in the unconscious that is saying there's some kind of threat, that reaction kicks in. And so, yeah, it's about training yourself to think and to take a pause anyway in all areas of life, to actually give yourself time to respond from a place of consideration, not a immediate response, because we all feel so hurried these days. But also, yeah, working on what's going on there that's triggering that in the first place, and how do we heal that?
Yeah, and everything moves at such a fast pace that even with things like gratitude or being present with the people that are around you and thinking, I've achieved that today, I've ticked that off. Someone with a crazy to-do list that has got something done off it. Look at those small things. It doesn't have to be perfection. People think perfection, it has to be like, I have 10 things down there, only got 2 done. Well, you got 2 done. What can you do better from tomorrow? And it's tiny little steps, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, we always say anything more than nothing. Anything more than nothing. And when life is so busy and you're in that state of overwhelm, perhaps, and you're really struggling, then, you know, it really is about breaking it down and focusing on the small things. And like you say, things like just taking a couple of minutes each evening to write down 3 things that you're grateful for or brought you joy during the day is actually, over a period of a couple of weeks, has been shown to improve your mood by around 14%. So for a couple of minutes an evening, that's not a bad return on your investment for a bit of a mood boost, is it? You know, and actually the thing is that it self-perpetuates, because as you do it and your mood improves, what you start to do is train your mind to notice those little things that are joyful or that you're thankful for. So you start to notice them more and more around you. So at first you're kind of scratching around trying to think of stuff. Before you know it, you're noticing them everywhere. And, you know, I know for myself, the example I always use is one of the things that brings me the biggest joy. I mean, I literally grin like an idiot is in the spring and summer when I'm sat in the garden, you know this, me and my
Yeah,
bumblebees,
I love it.
and a great big fat furry bumblebee just lazily comes humming past. And I've put all kinds of bee and butterfly friendly plants in my garden to try and get as many in as possible. And I literally sit there grinning like an idiot because they're so big and fat and furry, you could practically stroke them, and they shouldn't, according to physics, be able to fly, but they still mooch around, and they're just so calm and gentle and beautiful. And do you know what? I sit there and I grin like an idiot. That is such a source of joy for me. Now, a few years ago, I wouldn't even have noticed a
Yeah,
bumblebee
yeah,
or a butterfly or the first green shoots of bluebells starting to push through in spring. Now I watch the bluebells coming through and I get just so excited when I start to see them, because I know it's nearly springtime and hopefully it'll be getting warmer soon because I'm not keen on the cold. You know, so it really does start to make your brain actually become primed to notice more and more little wonders that are around us every single day. And there are millions of them when we start to really notice them.
definitely. It's instant gratification as well, isn't it? And even when you wake up, I wake up and I'm like, oh my God, that sun on my face, that's just amazing. Look where I am right now. Oh, I'm privileged to have all of this. Like, you feel so grateful that people think you're crazy. They're like, you are honestly in nutball. The sunset is so gorgeous. And I'm like, I just love the sunset. Like, I love that. And I love the noise of seawater and sand like, coming up, and just that peaceful noise of coming in, out. It just like brings me a sense of calm. So I forget about everything else, and they're the only places that I can be without hearing outside noise.
Yes. I mean, even, you know, the sound of a gentle breeze through leaves on trees, just anything like that. And often it is nature, because we are, you know, we're not meant to live in concrete jungles. We are, you know, we are connected with nature. We are natural beings. And so, you know, often things that can really kind of bring us a sense of calm and peace and joy are getting out in nature and appreciating, you know, the different colours and richness of the greens and the flowers when they're coming out in the spring and the summer, and the sounds and the warmth of the sun if you're in kind of, you know, UK and Ireland and it's not sunny all that often, the warmth of the sun on your skin that you really appreciate when you do get it. And, you know, so all those little things that really can just give you that little boost when you're having a difficult day.
It's the smallest things in the world, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're obviously coming to the end here. This has been so insightful. I'm sure people that are listening right now are probably feeling really inspired. They're listening to kind of what we're chatting about and thinking maybe that sounds like me. 'Cause we've kind of touched on different ages, different people, different females. So I do hope that this has helped. From working with myself and obviously people that know a lot about myself, what do you feel like working with you from where I started to where I am? How do you feel I've kind of transformed into the person that I am now, but also how it's kind of brought my business and everything up? Like, what do you feel was kind of pivotal? Because I know I can't really put that into words for some reason, but I know there's a lot of coaches and business owners that will be listening, and people that do lashes and nails and everything at home that might feel like I feel like I need something like that. What do you feel like? Obviously, I'm different as well. Everyone's different, but what do you feel like was that clicking moment for me and that helped me like, come from here to here?
I think it was you grew into who you are. You know, you've always been this shining, bright, um, inspired and driven woman, but you were kind of holding yourself back. It was almost like you were scared to grow into the person you were meant to be. And you know, obviously we worked through that through the therapeutic stuff and then more into the kind of business coaching now. But that the transformation for you was that point actually where I think where you really started to honor your values and to trust yourself. And then that was partly about clearing out some of the baggage so you could get clarity. And then really, and it was from that point that you went, right, I've got this now. Because, you know, we said it when I last spoke to you, you're so fast on everything. You're there and you go, 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 go. And you're so driven and you're this bright, shining star. But you were holding yourself in. And it was that point where you were able to clear the fog and really start to connect with what was really important to you and your integrity, and to honor your feelings and your thoughts, that you went, oh, okay, I get this now.
Yeah.
And that, since then, that was it from me, from my perspective. That was when you went,
yeah, it just skyrocketed. Everything just came together. It was like you said, the fog, I could just clearly see. And it really makes me emotional for the person that came onto the call the first time. And I wouldn't open up at all. Like, and I'm doing a podcast right now. Like, I remember when we done the first call, I was like, absolutely not. I'm not even going there right now. I'm not going to cry. Like, I'm going to keep this together. And obviously you had such a welcome and safe space for me. So anyone that is considering it, it's not an ad, this isn't me selling you up or anything, this is genuinely life-changing stuff. And please do ask questions. You can pop Kate a message, email her. There's going to be details below here that will genuinely change your life. And we all have dealt with stuff. We all have things that hold us back. And if you feel like you're at that point now where you need someone to speak to, this type of stuff is essential, if you ask me.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm a therapist now because I went through my own journey of therapy. So, you know, it was like literally and metaphorically and just in every way life-changing for me as well. And, you know, but I will leave you, I know one of the things you asked me for, and I haven't referenced any of them, but was for any books that I recommended for people that might be interested in reading. And I did do a little kind of further reading where I've got some recommendations with a little bit of information about each of them and what they're about. Obviously, the fabulous Brené Brown features highly on my reading list. But I will, obviously you've got that to share, and that's got my contact info in. So if anyone wants to ask a question, and we do offer a 30-minute free consult as well, because working with the right person is really, really important. You know, this is a really, really important investment in you. And you want to feel confident that you're working with the right person for you. So, you know, that's why that's really important to us as well. So we're always happy to answer questions and have a chat about things.
Amazing. So I have one final question at the end there. I am going to finish off each episode asking, say, the guests a question, but say for anyone that is struggling with any sort of unhappiness, self-doubt, lack of self-worth, feeling a little bit unheard, or has been dealing with trauma that they've been just kind of pushing away and not even dealing with it, in their life at the minute, what would your first step and advice be for anyone in that position right now that's listening?
Get help, get support. And whether that starts with speaking to a friend or someone because you're not ready to look for therapy, get somebody on your team and talk to somebody, and then go and find the right therapist for you. And, you know, it may be us, it may be, there are lots of brilliant therapists out there. It's about finding the right fit for you and it's not only the right kind of approach, but the right person for you to take that journey with, because you really do need to be feeling safe and supported in that therapeutic space to be able to kind of deal with some of the more difficult stuff or the most difficult stuff. So reach out, find the right person for you.
Amazing. Well,
Yeah.
I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart, obviously, as well. This has been amazing, and I just can't wait to listen back to this as well. And I really hope that everyone has come to the end here that is listening, and that you enjoyed it as well. You've taken inspiration, and you can understand and see I am obviously someone that has walked in the steps of obviously dealing with my own trauma, my healing, different person. Everyone asks me, how have I become this CEO, this person that I am now? It's amazing. And it honestly, like, I've got the mentor, I've got the coach, all of that, but it comes down to the deep healing and the hard stuff that I never ever thought was holding me back. So if this feels like you need to go for it. But I just want to say, again, thank you so much. And I'll leave all your information below for any questions or anything like that. You can put or it's DM, and we will be in touch, and we'll get back and we'll put the list of books as well below. But thank you so much for coming on, and
Welcome.
I'm forever grateful.
Thank you. It's always lovely to spend time with you in whatever capacity. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Dr. Kate Blackford.